Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and gives this video a thumbs up. Gary Levingston, a Bachelor in Paradise Season 10 contestant, is shedding light on his date with Nancy, following speculation that they were under the influence. Let me set the record straight, please, Gary, 66, told Us Weekly exclusively during the iHeartRadio Pickleball tournament. There were no narcotics. There were no drugs. There was no cannabis. There were no gummy bears. Nothing except raw chocolate, or cacao, made its way into this temple of mine. After arriving to Costa Rica's beaches, Nancy asked Gary to accompany her on an intimate date where they sipped cacao and appeared to be having fun. When they returned from their date, the host quipped that Gary was still tripping balls during his confessional. "It was funny watching it back," Gary added. "And it's fascinating how you can transform a scenario or a circumstance into something fantastic." So that is what it was. Gary has been a hot commodity since hitting the beach, having previously dated Jerry Turner's runner-up, Leslie Fema. During the rose ceremony, however, Natasha Hardy presented Gary with a rose. Gary describes the attention as very flattering and also very humbling. "I had no idea the impact that just being a nice guy would have on relationships," he told me. "I'm humbled by the entire experience, but it's easy when you're just being yourself. I like to encourage and motivate others. I'm not sure if that's what's coming out or I can't explain it. It was almost supernatural, even as the rain started to fall and we were dancing in it. That's not something that happens very often," he remarked. So it was unique in that manner. She is a fantastic mother, grandma, and person. Her character is fantastic, and having the opportunity to spend some time with her has made me want to spend more time with her. She's unique. She is a special individual. It's truly a blessing to have been part of that, with what they have allowed me to do, and in the process of being selected by them and some of the women, it's just very humbling," he told me. "I wouldn't trade it in for the world." Gary Levingston could still remember the way the sun had dipped behind the lush Costa Rican hills that day with Nancy, casting streaks of gold and tangerine across the water as the waves lapped lazily at the shore. It had been one of those moments that, to him, felt unplanned yet destined, the sort of thing that the cameras could never fully translate no matter how good the lighting or how soft the background music. When Nancy had approached him earlier in the week with that gentle but mischievous smile and the simple request, "Gary, come with me. I have something I want you to try," he had no clue that sipping raw cacao with her would become a viral talking point. For him, it was simply about saying yes to a new experience with someone who intrigued him. He hadn't considered how Bachelor in Paradise's editing room might spin a casual beach date into something suggestive, nor how a few lingering shots of him and Nancy laughing with flushed cheeks could spark hundreds of social media threads speculating about whether they had been on something. So when he sat down with Us Weekly at the iHeartRadio Pickleball tournament weeks later, he was eager to clear the air. "Let me set the record straight, please," he had insisted, voice steady but tinged with that patient amusement that comes from having been in front of reality TV cameras long enough to know the game. There were no narcotics. There were no drugs. There was no cannabis. There were no gummy bears. Nothing except raw chocolate, or cacao, made its way into this temple of mine. He had even chuckled after calling his body a temple, because at 66, he wasn't pretending to be some pristine monk, but he was proud of the way he kept himself healthy and present. The whole thing, he explained, had been Nancy's idea, a little cultural ritual she'd learned about on her travels, meant to open the heart and calm the mind. When they arrived at the secluded spot she had arranged, the air had been fragrant with the scent of crushed cacao beans and sea salt, and they'd sipped the thick, slightly bitter drink from handmade clay cups while sitting cross-legged on woven mats. It had felt intimate in a way that surprised him, not romantic exactly, at least not at first, but deeply connective. Nancy, with her cascade of silver hair and warm laugh, had told him stories about her grandchildren and the way she still sought adventure, and Gary had found himself drawn to her openness. The host's quip later, saying he was still tripping balls during his confessional, had made him laugh when he watched it back, but he also knew how easily viewers could believe it. "It was funny watching it back," he told the interviewer. "And it's fascinating how you can transform a scenario or a circumstance into something fantastic." So that is what it was. On the beach, though, not everyone had seen it as harmless fun. Some contestants had raised their eyebrows when he and Nancy returned, giddy and with sand still clinging to their damp clothes. A few whispered theories began circulating before dinner that night. Was Gary letting loose too much? Was Nancy trying to mark her territory? Gary didn't care much for the rumors, but he was aware of them. And it didn't help that he'd already been in the spotlight from the moment he'd stepped onto the beach, largely due to his past connection with Leslie Fima, the high-profile runner-up from Jerry Turner's Golden Bachelor season. That connection, complicated, warm, and entirely in the past, meant that cameras always seemed to linger on him, as if hoping for some accidental reunion or revelation. Instead, Gary found himself at the center of an entirely new tangle of interest when, at the following rose ceremony, Natasha Hardy stepped forward and presented him with her rose. For Gary, it was a curveball. He'd enjoyed his time with Nancy and had been curious to see where it might lead, but Natasha's gesture was confident, almost strategic. Very flattering, he admitted later, and also very humbling. He'd never thought of himself as the kind of man who would be the subject of such visible competition at this stage in life, but here he was, two women vying for his attention under the warm Costa Rican moon. "I had no idea the impact that just being a nice guy would have on relationships," he said. "I'm humbled by the entire experience, but it's easy when you're just being yourself. I like to encourage and motivate others. I'm not sure if that's what's coming out or I can't explain it." His nice guy demeanor had, in fact, become one of the most talked about traits on the beach. Younger contestants found him approachable, older ones respected his perspective, and producers loved that he could be both earnest and witty in his confessionals. That night, when the rain began to fall just as the ceremony ended, he had stepped out onto the sand without hesitation, letting the drops soak his linen shirt, and Nancy had joined him. They danced in it, slow, unchoreographed, laughing as the water streamed down their faces, and the image was so striking that the editors used it as the closing shot for the episode. That's not something that happens very often, Gary reflected later. So it was unique in that manner. She is a fantastic mother, grandma, and person. Her character is fantastic, and having the opportunity to spend some time with her has made me want to spend more time with her. She's unique. She is a special individual. He spoke about Nancy the way one might describe a treasured friend or a person they were beginning to admire on a deeper level, and yet he was careful not to label their connection prematurely. Thanks for watching. If you likes this video, do not forget to subscribe my channel and do not miss any update.